Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today we're really stepping into the courtroom, looking at source material from the Sean Diddy Combs trial.
Specifically, testimony from a former assistant, referred to as Mia.
Exactly. Our mission here is to kind of unpack the key things she said, her account of working for Mr. Combs, and, importantly, how she handled the defense's questions about her own actions back then.
Yeah, let's get into it. This testimony, it really gives a window into the environment Mia described, doesn't it? She worked for him from, 2009 to 2017?
That's right.
And she painted a picture of, she called it chaotic, toxic. She talked about physical, sexual, and emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of her account was this feeling of being controlled and just constantly afraid during those years. It wasn't just, one-off incidents, but this pervasive atmosphere she said she was living in.
And that feeling, that claim of constant fear, that's really where the defense zeroed in during cross-examination.
Makes sense.
They basically said, okay, you're describing almost 8 years of terror. But then they pointed to actions Mia took that, on the surface don't seem to line up with being terrified.
Like staying in the job for so long.
Exactly, staying for years. And specific things like making this detailed birthday scrapbook for him.
Oh.
Or posting positive, even glowing things about him on social media.
Right.
The defense strategy seemed pretty clear. Make the jury wonder how those actions fit with her claims of abuse and fear, trying to create doubt.
And Mia, she had explanations for that. She framed it all within the dynamics of, what she alleges was an abusive relationship, both personally and professionally.
How did she put it?
She mentioned being young and manipulated and eager to survive. That was the direct quote. And she brought up concepts you often hear in these situations, like the cycle of violence.
Where things aren't terrible all the time, there might be calmer periods, making it confusing.
Precisely. It makes it harder to leave, harder to see clearly. She also talked quite a bit about her trauma brain overriding her logic brain.
Which is this idea that under constant stress or fear, your brain just prioritizes survival, right? Not always rational long-term decisions.
Exactly. Survival mode. And she said this led to things becoming normalized, making excuses for the behavior, wanting to be a people pleaser almost as a way to cope or just stay safe.
She gave some really stark examples too, feeling isolated, like she had no external sounding board.
Yeah.
Even having to, quote, beg for permission to go to her own grandmother's funeral. That really lands.
It does. And that scrapbook, she explained, it wasn't just, a nice gesture. It was driven by that need to please, hoping it would make him happy, maybe make things easier for her, survival again.
And the social media posts. Similar reasoning.
Seems so. She said it was expected. It was part of maintaining an image, maybe projecting a good life to the outside world, to her family, even if that wasn't the reality she felt she was living.
Wow. And she even talked about reposting a birthday message from him shortly after she alleges he threatened her life.
Yes. And the message apparently included an apology for, quote, acting crazy last night. She testified she saw that as his apology and felt she had to play along, keep up appearances online. Saying love you in messages, she explained, was about maintaining what she called a best friend dynamic, because she felt safer when that was intact.
It paints a picture of constantly walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
And then there was that incident on the yacht.
Oh, right. Being kicked off for counting money too slowly. The quote she attributed to him was brutal. "You better learn to walk on water like Jesus, Britch. Get the fuck out of here."
Yes, wow. It highlights that alleged verbal abuse and control she described. And then, wasn't she immediately ordered back onto the boat?
Yes, which just underscores the unpredictable and controlling environment she was alleging. It wasn't just the outburst, but the whiplash of control.
And interestingly, this fear she described, it didn't just end when she left the job.
No, her testimony covered recent events too. Feeling terrified by messages from Mr. Combs and his security in early 2024. This is years later.
Why now?
She testified she thought any kindness was just a front, that they were trying to see if she was the threat, especially after Cassie Ventura's lawsuit came out. It speaks to the long-term psychological impact she's claiming.
PTSD symptoms, difficulty working.
Right. She testified that simple questions could trigger intense fear related to her time there. So this whole narrative, it really underscores the complex psychology potentially at play in situations of alleged long-term abuse and control.
Those explanations, like trauma brain, the cycle of violence, they offer a lens to understand actions that might seem contradictory otherwise.
Absolutely. They make sense within the context she described, and you see the legal battle lines clearly drawn. The defense uses those actions to question her credibility.
While her testimony aims to explain those very actions as products of the alleged environment.
Exactly. And, legal analysts are weighing in on whether Combs himself might testify. Most see it as pretty risky, opening himself up to cross-examination.
Though I saw one comment suggesting it could potentially humanize him for the jury.
It's a high-stakes gamble, definitely. Shows how complex presenting human behavior is in court.
Well, this deep dive into Mia's testimony certainly gives us a lot to think about regarding these dynamics she described and just how complex these situations can be in a trial setting.
It really does.
It makes you consider how actions that look inconsistent from the outside might actually tell you more about the pressures someone was under rather than their honesty. What really stands out to you, the listener, about this intersection where personal actions meet alleged external control and pressure? Something to think about.